Hey, my name is James Attaway, and today I'm going to show you how I set up a mix from scratch on the Allen Heath SQ5. I've already got my console laid out. You can see on here I've got layer A with all my instruments, and I've got my key faders that I like to have available for transitions like the pastor's mic and the playback music and stuff. Then on layer B, I've got my vocals and my DCAs that are controlling what's on layer A. I also have my effects returns, so we're going to get to those in a later video. But we're going to talk about how we build the mix from scratch, and I'm going to walk you through my process. I'm using pre-recorded tracks, so I'm not going to be setting gain, but I'm going to walk you through the process of how I build a mix and make it easy for people like you to follow along and do the same kind of thing with your setup. Mixing gets a lot easier when you balance it in a systematic way, and I'm going to show you how I do that today. So let's jump in. So we start our mix with the primary instrument, and in this song, it's the keyboard. Next, we're going to add in our lead vocal. We add it in early because we want to make sure that everything else is making room for it.
Hallelujah, for the Lord our God, He reigns, He reigns.
Next, we can add in the bass guitar. The bass guitar is going to add in the lower octave of our primary instrument, and it needs to be able to add in the feeling that we get from the bass. Now, the appropriate level for you and your congregation might be different than somebody else's congregation. You have to know how big the bass should be before you start your mix. And if you haven't yet, you need to have a conversation about that with your leadership team. If you want an outline to help define what the parameters should be like for your mix, I made a free guide for you called How to Lead Your Church Sound Team. You can download that through the link down in the description below. But anyway, back to the mixing, and let's get the bass right.
The Lord our God, You reign. Let's declare You reign. You reign. You reign. You reign. You reign. Jesus, You reign. You reign.
All right, it's got the high pass filter on already. We don't want that. We want all the low end.
We declare, Lord, that You reign. You reign.
Now we can add in the kick drum. I'm going to make sure that it doesn't have a high pass filter on too.
Jesus, we say, You reign. You reign.
Now we can add in the snare to match the kick. And the song ends, so we'll wait till it loops back. All right, so the kick and the snare need to match in level. We have too little kick, and it's just snare. That feels weird. And then the bass doesn't have any punch. If we have too much kick but not enough snare, it feels weak. We want it to have a strong backbeat. So we're gonna push up the snare till it matches the kick drum. Now we can add in our overhead mics. We only need a little bit of these. Usually drummers hit cymbals pretty hard and they're pretty loud. So we can pull this back in the mix. We don't have to really push it out in front. I think I want a little bit more bass, so I'm going to tuck that up just a little bit more. Now we can add in our other instruments. We're going to push them up till we can identify them and then pull them back so that the primary instrument stays the primary instrument. Remember, I'm listening to the keyboard to know where to put the acoustic guitar. And now the instruments take a little break. Pushing up your instruments and then pulling them back keeps you from ratcheting up and getting things louder and louder and louder and burying your lead vocal. I haven't had to revisit the level of my lead vocal yet because I've been careful about how I push stuff up and then pull it back again.
You stand alone in glory and majesty, stand alone in glory and majesty, stand alone in glory.
Remember, I'm pushing it up till I can identify it, pulling it back and listening for the primary instrument. Now I'm going to do the same with the second electric guitar. All right, now I've built my mix with most of my instruments in. Now I can start worrying about my background vocals. This gives them time to get warmed up. Now this is in the middle of a worship set, so they weren't warming up, but when you're building a mix, it's gonna be in sound check. So give them time to warm up before you try to place them in the mix.
For the Lord our God, yes, He reigns. We have come to give you all the glory. We give you glory, Lord. For the Lord our God, You reign.
Remember, don't bury the lead vocal. Keep the lead vocal out in front.
You reign. You reign.
I can't hear the guitar vocal right now. He's probably not singing.
You reign. You reign. You reign.
Now I can go back in and add my toms. Now that we've built our mix and gotten a good foundation on the faders, we've gotten things dialed in, now we can start to address our next pillar, which is the high pass filter and low pass filter. The high pass filter gets rid of the stuff that we don't want on the bottom end, and the low pass filter does it on the top end. We can get rid of unwanted high frequencies by shaving those off, and it makes for a better, cleaner sound. Let me do the high pass filter one group of instruments at a time so that you can hear what it's like, and you can see how I will roll it up until it gets too thin, and then back it off, pop it out to make sure that I'm cutting only what I want to cut, and then we'll go on to the next instrument. So on the kick drum, we're going to roll up the high pass filter. Now it's gotten a little thin. I'm going to back it off till it gets thick again. And take it out. And it got tighter with the high pass filter in. Now I'm going to go on to my snare drum. All right, it's gotten thin, so I'm going to back it off some. I'm going to pop it out. You can see how it's got a little bit more impact on the bottom end from having less of the subharmonic frequencies that we don't want. Now the snare bottom, I'm going to high pass filter way up high so that I just get the snares sounds. Now I have to take a second and remind you that you have to check polarity on drums. On this recording, the polarity was switched before it got to the recording, so I don't have to go hit the polarity button. But if you needed to, or if when you push up the snare bottom, the snare top sounded thinner, you could go here and hit the polarity switch. This inverts the absolute push-pull of this particular signal so that it combines well with other microphones that are picking up that same sound source. I'll keep the high-pass filter off on the snare bottom and then flip the polarity so that you can hear what it sounds like when there's a phase cancellation on those two microphones. Now, those words get misused a lot, but just trust me, we're flipping the polarity to fix a phase problem. There you go. So let me show you what it's like when we flip the polarity on the snare bottom so that you can know what it's like when it's wrong and you might need to address it. We definitely want it thicker rather than thinner with our polarity switch. We can always thin it out later with our EQ or make it brighter if we want. But we can't get back the frequencies that we cancel out. It's just the way that it goes. You hear how it came back? That's what we want to keep, but we want to get rid of the extra flabby stuff. You hear how it got thin? We're going to back it off a little bit. Now turn it off. No bueno. Now, high pass filter on overheads is your friend. You can make it sound very, very clean and not have a lot of extra drum resonance in there and have it just be the cymbals. So that feels pretty good on our drums. Let's go on to the bass and other instruments. Just a little bit cleans that up nicely. All right, that's too thin. Back it off a little bit. Now, unfortunately, I did not start with a completely clean console, so I am hearing some compression on here. Let me turn this off real quick and make sure I gain that down. Now we can start again and really hear what's going on without the compression artifacts that change with the high pass filter. All right, that's too thin. But we might also want to listen to it with the bass. So the bass is going to be an important part to knowing how thin we can make other things so that the bass can fill in the low end. Not every instrument has to fill up all the low end. All right, that's not bad. That's a little thin. All right, do the same thing with the other electric. All right, we can actually get pretty aggressive with this while they're playing more lead parts or more stuff up higher. They start playing bigger stuff down low. We don't want that to get too thin. So around 150 is a good starting place. Now the keyboard. Now, this guy's key sounds are already pretty filtered and thin, which is the stylistic thing that he was going for. So the high pass filter is not going to make a huge difference on this input. He was already making room for the bass with his tones. So kudos to you, Mr. Evan. So that's how we get started with mixing our band. In the next video, I'll show you how I EQ and compress a lot of these instruments and get things even tighter and make more room for one another and get a little bit more separation and clarity in your mix. Hey, if you liked this video, go ahead and mash that thumbs up. If you want to see more like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you want to go ahead and check out other ones that are in this playlist on the SQ series consoles, go ahead and check out the playlist down in the description below. If you want my starting places for EQ and compression, I've compiled them all into a handy book with an ebook version or a printed copy that you can find at livemixingfieldguide.com. They're not presets, just a guided tour of where to listen for and things to try first when you're learning how to EQ and compress the instruments that you're likely to be mixing at church. As always, remember, it's all about the low end, avoid the sound tech solo, and nobody leaves church humming the kick drum. We'll see you back here next time on Attaway Audio.